Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going back in time, to like Elizabethan England, a
Ah,
world of, those bustling playhouses,
yes.
rowdy audiences, and actors who were like the rock stars of their day.
Yeah.
Get ready to go behind the scenes as we kind
Uh-huh.
of delve into the lives of two
Yeah.
theatrical giants,
Okay.
Richard Burbage and Will Kemp.
It's interesting because like their influence goes so far beyond,
Yeah.
just their own time. They
Mhm.
weren't just famous actors, they were pioneers who shaped the very foundations of acting and the theater industry as we know it today.
And to guide us through this world, we have the expertise of
Yes.
Professor Siobhan Keenan, a leading scholar of Shakespeare and Renaissance literature.
Yes, she's wonderful.
Her insights from a recent podcast interview are really going to bring these figures to life.
I think what's so fascinating about them is that their stories are full of intrigue and rivalry and a
Yes.
surprising amount of innovation. It's like a real life drama unfolding on the Elizabethan stage.
Okay, so let's set the stage, so to speak.
Yes.
Um, to truly understand Burbage and Kemp,
Mm-hmm.
we need to grasp the context of Elizabethan England.
Yes.
Professor Keenan kind of paints this vivid picture
Mm-hmm.
of this era, a time of like cultural explosion where purpose-built playhouses were popping up all over London and theater was becoming a major industry.
And like any industry, it needed patrons, those
Yeah.
wealthy nobles or even royalty who provided, financial support and prestige.
Yeah.
Professor Keenan specifically mentions the Lord Chamberlain, who later became King James I, as
Right.
a key patron. His company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men,
Hmm.
featured both Burbage and Kemp, along with, of course, William Shakespeare himself.
I know many of you are familiar with the concept of patronage, but for those who might need a refresher, it wasn't just about money.
Right.
It also provided crucial social standing
Yeah.
and access to powerful audiences,
Yeah.
including the Queen herself. Imagine the pressure of performing for royalty.
Absolutely.
And speaking of venues, Professor Keenan described
Yes.
a truly vibrant theatrical scene
Yeah.
with playhouses like the Theater,
Yeah.
the Rose,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the iconic Globe.
Yeah.
These weren't just buildings, they were cultural hubs
Yeah.
that attracted a surprisingly diverse crowd.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to picture these audiences,
Yeah.
groundlings, standing in the open yard for a penny, rubbing shoulders with wealthy merchants in the galleries,
Ah.
and nobility enjoying the luxury of the Lord's rooms.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating glimpse into Elizabethan society.
It really highlights that broad appeal of theater at the time.
Mhm.
It transcended social class, bringing people from all walks of life together to experience these shared stories.
All right, let's turn our attention to our main players.
Okay.
Let's start with Richard Burbage. It seems he was practically born into the world of theater.
Yeah.
His father, James Burbage, was a carpenter who built the first purpose-built playhouse in London
Mm-hmm.
called, fittingly, the Theater.
So it's no surprise that Richard,
Yeah.
starting his acting career around the age of 15,
Right.
followed in his father's footsteps. It
Mhm.
seems theatrical talent ran in the family.
Now, Will Kemp's rise to stardom is a bit more mysterious.
Yeah.
We first hear of him in the 1580s,
Mm-hmm.
performing with the Earl of Leicester's men.
Yeah.
Professor Keenan highlights his comedic talent,
Right.
particularly his knack for improvisation and those energetic jigs he was famous for.
What makes Kemp particularly interesting is his comedic style.
Hmm.
He represented a more traditional, almost folkloric approach to comedy, relying heavily on physical humor, wordplay, and audience interaction.
Right.
Imagine him as a sort of Elizabethan stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
keeping the crowd on their toes with his wit and unpredictable antics.
It sounds like he was a real crowd pleaser.
Oh, yeah.
So we have these two contrasting figures.
Uh-huh.
Burbage, the son of a theater builder, entering the profession almost by destiny,
Mhm.
and Kemp rising through the ranks based on his raw comedic talent and that ability to connect with the audience.
And their paths finally converge in 1594 with the formation of the Lord Chamberlain's Men,
Right.
bringing Burbage, Kemp, and Shakespeare together.
Mhm.
Talk about a theatrical dream team.
Yeah.
This is where their stories
Hmm?
and perhaps their rivalry truly begin.
But before we dive into that, let's explore their unique acting styles a bit further.
Okay.
We've touched on Kemp's comedic brilliance.
Yes.
But Professor Keenan describes Burbage as a master of tragic roles, known for his immersive performances and ability to convey deep emotion.
Yeah.
He was famous for inhabiting characters like Hamlet Othello and King Lear.
What set Burbage apart was his psychological realism.
Yeah.
He wasn't just delivering lines, he was embodying these complex characters, portraying their inner turmoil and emotional depth with a level of nuance that was groundbreaking for the time. You could say he was a precursor to the method acting we see today.
It's fascinating to contrast their approaches.
Yes.
Burbage delving into the psyche of his characters,
Yeah.
and Kemp engaging the audience with his wit and physical comedy. It almost seems like Shakespeare was writing with them specifically in mind, crafting roles to showcase their individual strengths.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Professor Keenan believes that Shakespeare, perhaps for the first time in his career, had a consistent group of actors to write for. He knew their strengths, their personalities, and could tailor his characters accordingly.
So he wasn't just writing in a vacuum.
Exactly.
He was composing his plays with specific actors in mind.
Right.
Almost like a composer writing music for particular instruments.
Exactly. And if we look at the plays written after the Lord Chamberlain's Men formed, we start to see evidence of this.
Okay.
The tragic heroes, like Romeo, seem tailor-made for Burbage's intense introspective style, while the comedic roles, especially those filled with wordplay and physical humor, feel very much like Kemp's territory.
This raises an interesting question. Did the growing popularity of Burbage and Kemp and the different types of roles they excelled at actually influence what Shakespeare was writing?
Yeah.
Was it a case of the playwright shaping the actors or the actors shaping the playwright?
That's a question scholars have been debating for centuries.
Yeah.
Professor Keenan suggests that it was likely a bit of both. Shakespeare was a brilliant observer of human nature.
Right.
And he undoubtedly drew inspiration from the actors he worked with, but he also had his own distinct vision, his own stories to tell.
So it was a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
A creative exchange between playwright and actors, each influencing the other. It's like a fascinating dance between text and performance, each enhancing the other.
Precisely. And let's not forget that this was a time when audiences craved both tragedy and comedy.
Right.
Having Burbage and Kemp in the same company was a recipe for success. They were like two sides of the same theatrical coin, each appealing to different tastes and ensuring there was something for everyone.
Speaking of success, let's talk about a pivotal moment in their careers.
Okay.
The building of the Globe.
Oh, yeah.
This wasn't just another playhouse.
No.
It was a game changer.
Yeah.
And the story behind its construction is pretty wild.
It all started with a lease dispute.
Okay.
Remember the playhouse built by Burbage's father?
Yeah.
Well, the lease was expiring and the landlord was being difficult.
Yep.
So Richard and his brother Cuthbert came up with a daring and perhaps slightly illegal plan.
Okay. This sounds good. Tell me more.
They waited until Christmas time while the landlord was away.
Okay.
And with a crew of workers, they literally dismantled the entire theater.
Really?
They took it apart, timber by timber, and shipped the materials across the Thames to Southwark.
Wow, that's a bold move. Talk about taking matters into your own hands. But it wasn't just about spite, was it? They had a bigger vision in mind.
Absolutely. They used those timbers to build the Globe, creating a space that was truly their own.
Right.
But they needed financial backing to complete the project.
Right.
So they did something quite revolutionary.
Okay.
They invited fellow actors, including Shakespeare, to invest.
So they were creating a company where the actors had ownership.
Exactly.
That's incredibly innovative for the time.
This ownership structure, which was unheard of at the time, gave the actors financial security and unprecedented control over their own destiny.
Right.
They weren't just performers, they were stakeholders in the success of the Globe.
And the location of the Globe in the bustling entertainment district of Bankside was no accident, was it?
You're right. Professor Keenan points out that Bankside, where the Globe was built, wasn't just any location. It was already a thriving entertainment district home to not just playhouses, but also taverns, brothels, and even bear baiting arenas.
It sounds like a place where people went to let loose and have a good time. Maybe a bit like a modern-day Las Vegas or a red light district with a theatrical twist.
It was a place where people came to escape the everyday, to indulge their senses, and experience something new and exciting by building the Globe there.
Yeah.
The Lord Chamberlain's men were tapping into this existing energy, attracting crowds who were already in the mood for a good time.
It was a savvy business decision, for sure. But the presence of the playhouses and the influx of actors and theater workers must have had an impact on Bankside itself, don't you think?
Absolutely. Professor Keenan describes a sort of cultural shift occurring in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
The Globe wasn't just a building. It was a catalyst for change,
Right.
attracting a community of artists and transforming the social fabric of Bankside.
So the Globe wasn't just about entertainment. It was about community building, fostering artistic expression, and contributing to the cultural landscape of the area.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's within this dynamic environment that we see the legacies of Burbage and Kemp truly unfold.
But as with any good story, there's a twist.
Yeah.
Around 1600,
Uh-huh.
Will Kemp decides to leave the company, selling his share of the Globe.
His departure is a real turning point,
Yeah.
not just for Kemp himself,
Right.
but for the Lord Chamberlain's men as well.
Right.
But the reasons behind his decision remain shrouded in mystery.
Okay.
Professor Keenan offers several possible explanations.
Let's unpack those possibilities and explore the ramifications of Kemp's departure after a quick break. Stay tuned. So we left off with Will Kemp's rather sudden departure
Yes.
from the Lord Chamberlain's men. What are some of the theories
Okay.
Professor Keenan offers about why he left?
Well, one possibility is financial difficulties.
Okay.
Professor Keenan notes that Kemp had a history of money troubles,
Right.
so selling his share in the Globe might have been a necessity.
That makes sense. After all, actors back then weren't exactly known for their financial stability.
Right. Another theory is creative differences.
Okay.
Perhaps he felt stifled by the company's direction or missed having the freedom to improvise.
He was known for his spontaneous comedic style.
Yes.
So maybe he craved a less structured environment.
Exactly. And we can't rule out the possibility that he simply missed the thrill of traveling and performing solo.
Right.
Remember, he had toured extensively earlier in his career.
Yeah.
So maybe he felt that pull of the open road once again.
It's interesting to think about how these personal and artistic motivations might have intertwined to lead to his decision.
Absolutely. Whatever the reasons.
Yeah.
Kemp's departure marked a significant turning point for the company, particularly their comedic style.
You're right. They brought in a new comic actor, Robert Armin,
Yes.
who specialized in a more philosophical, wordplay-driven type of humor, quite different from Kemp's boisterous physical comedy.
Yes, and this shift is reflected in the plays themselves.
Yeah.
Characters like the Fool and King Lear represent this new comedic sensibility.
It's almost as if Shakespeare adapted his writing to suit the strengths
Right,
of his
okay.
new actors, further supporting the idea that he was very much aware
Yes.
and responsive to their individual talents.
Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder if Burbage's tragic roles became even more prominent after Kemp's exit. Did Shakespeare perhaps write with Burbage even more specifically in mind?
It's certainly possible. Professor Keenan points out that Shakespeare even revised Hamlet around this time,
Really?
expanding scenes that focused on madness and philosophical introspection,
Wow.
themes that played to Burbage's strengths.
So in a way, Kemp's departure might have inadvertently cleared the stage for Burbage to truly shine. But before we delve deeper into their individual legacies,
Okay.
I want to circle back to the Globe for a moment.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that its location in Southwark was no accident.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that?
Of course, Professor Keenan highlights that Bankside, where the Globe was built, wasn't just any location. It was already a thriving entertainment district,
Yeah.
home to not just playhouses, but also taverns, brothels,
Yeah.
and even bear baiting arenas.
Wow, it sounds like a place where people went to let loose and have a good time.
Right.
Maybe a bit like a modern-day Las Vegas or a red light district with a theatrical twist.
Yes, it was a place where people came to escape the everyday, to indulge their senses and experience something new and exciting by building the Globe there.
Yeah.
The Lord Chamberlain's men were tapping into this existing energy,
All right.
attracting crowds who were already in the mood for a good time.
It was a savvy business decision,
Yeah.
for sure. But the presence of the playhouses
Yes.
and the influx of actors and theater workers must have had an impact on Bankside itself, don't you think?
Absolutely. Professor Keenan describes a sort of cultural shift occurring in the neighborhood.
Okay.
The Globe wasn't just a building, it was a catalyst for change.
Right.
Attracting a community of artists and transforming the social fabric of Bankside.
So the Globe wasn't just about entertainment. It was about community building, fostering artistic expression and contributing to the cultural landscape of the area.
Precisely. And it's within this dynamic environment that we see the legacies of Burbage and Kemp truly unfold.
Let's talk about those legacies then, starting with Kemp.
Okay.
What do you think he represents in the grand scheme of acting history?
To me, Kemp embodies the enduring power of improvisation, that ability to connect with the audience in a direct and spontaneous way, to make them laugh and create something magical out of the unexpected.
He's like the ancestor of all the stand-up comedians and improv troupes
Exactly.
we see today, reminding us that sometimes the most memorable moments on stage are the ones that aren't planned.
Exactly. He's a reminder that great comedy can arise from the unscripted, from that raw energy and connection with the audience. And Burbage, well, he represents something quite different.
Professor Keenan calls Burbage a progenitor of the naturalist approach to acting. He was all about immersing himself in the role, conveying those deep, raw emotions, and making audiences truly believe in the characters he portrayed.
Yes. He was like the forerunner of method acting, striving for psychological realism, delving into the depth of human experience, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible on stage.
But his legacy extends beyond the stage, doesn't it?
Yes.
He was also a shrewd businessman, a theater builder, and a driving force behind the globe.
You're right. Burbage's legacy is multifaceted.
Yeah.
He helped establish theater as a sustainable profession, a respected art form, and a thriving industry. He wasn't just a talented actor, he was a visionary entrepreneur who helped shape the very landscape of Elizabethan theater.
So we have these two contrasting figures. Kemp, the improvisational comedian, the master of spontaneity. And Burbage, the immersive tragedian, plumbing the depths of human emotion. Two sides of the same theatrical coin, each contributing to the vibrant tapestry of Elizabethan theater.
And what's remarkable is that their legacies continue to influence actors and audiences today. They remind us of the power, the versatility, and the enduring magic of the stage.
That's so true. They represent two enduring approaches to acting, two ways of connecting with an audience, and their influence can still be seen on stages and screens around the world. It's amazing to think about how these two figures, Burbage and Kemp, with their contrasting styles, helped shape the trajectory of acting, leaving behind a legacy that continues to resonate with audiences centuries later.
And what's fascinating is that we still see these archetypes today, you know, the Kemps and the Burbages of the modern stage and screen.
You're right. We have those actors who are known for their comedic timing, the ability to improvise, and their larger-than-life personalities that just draw you in. They're the ones who can make you laugh until your sides hurt and leave you feeling like you've just shared an inside joke.
And then you have those actors who seem to completely disappear into their roles, conveying deep emotion and psychological complexity with such nuance and subtlety that you forget you're watching a performance. They're the ones who can make you feel every heartbreak, every triumph, as if you were experiencing it yourself.
It's like those two approaches to acting represent two fundamental aspects of human nature. Our need for laughter and joy. And our capacity for empathy and deep emotional connection.
It's a testament to the enduring power of theater to embrace different forms of expression and connect with audiences on multiple levels.
So taking a step back, what can we learn from Burbage and Kemp's stories?
Oh, that's a good question.
What insights can we glean from their journeys that might resonate with us today?
Well, I think their stories remind us that talent, hard work, and a bit of luck can take you far. But it's also about seizing opportunities and being willing to take risks.
They also highlight the importance of collaboration. Of working together to create something greater than the sum of its parts.
And even within a collaborative art form, like theater, individual personalities and styles can shine through. Contributing to the richness and diversity of the final product.
It's like a jazz ensemble. Where each musician has their own unique voice, but together they create something harmonious and beautiful.
And perhaps most importantly, Burbage and Kemp remind us that theater is a living, breathing art form, constantly evolving and adapting to reflect the times. It's not stuck in the past. It's a mirror to our own world, our own concerns, and our own search for meaning.
So the next time you watch a play or a movie, take a moment to appreciate the actors and the legacy they carry.
Think about the Kemps and the Burbages who paved the way for them, who pushed the boundaries of what was possible on stage and helped shape our understanding of what it means to truly embody a character.
And consider how their influence still shapes the stories we tell and the way we tell them.
Because in the end, it's all about the magic of performance. That ability to transport us, to make us laugh, to make us cry, and to make us feel truly alive.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the fascinating world of Burbage, Kemp, and Elizabethan theater.
Yes.
I hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have.
It's been a pleasure exploring these theatrical pioneers with you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the subjects that fascinate you.
Because there's always something new to discover.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.